Welcome back to the channel and to another WNBA video. We got Game 3 action coming our way for Friday, October 4th. We got 2 games to go into, so we're going to break down and analyze each of those games. Then we'll talk about which way that I'm leaning as far as the points and the spread, and we're also going to talk about any player props I found for those games that I like. And then any picks that I put in officially myself, I'm going to list right down there in that pinned comment, so make sure you check back in. That way you can see if you'd like to ride along with me. But before we get into these games, we got to go over what we took in Game 2 and how that ended up going down. And we did take the liberty laying the 3.5 points, and we do cash. Now, it was a sweat. They only won by 4, but we do cash, man. And we took Jonquel Jones under 1.5 3-pointers made, and we cash on that one as well. And we did take the Sun plus 5.5 points. They end up losing by 7, so we don't hit on that one. But then we took DeJounte Carrington of the Sun over 16.5 points plus rebounds, and we do cash on that as well. So a 3-1 night, 14-4 run to start these playoffs. Man, let's keep that good energy rolling right here into these Game 3s. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's not waste any more time. Wait, before we do, though, make sure you smash that like button down there for me, guys, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. That way you don't miss out on any of the content that we're dropping across the channel on a daily. But let's get into it, man. We got the Lynx and the Sun first up. The Sun are laying 2 in this one. We have an over-under sitting at 151. Now, we've discussed the differences in each squad so far in these videos for Game 1 and Game 2. We know that Minnesota, they rely heavily on perimeter shooting and their solid defense, while the Sun play more inside and boast the league's top defense. Specifically, man, the Sun are a very solid perimeter defensive team, and that, is going to counter that Minnesota attack quite nicely. It seems like the games have played out to these factors so far, right? Minnesota struggled from deep in Game 1. They lost. They shot 42% from deep in Game 2. They won by 7. The Sun, throughout this season, man, they have faced times on offense where the system just looks completely stagnant, right? They look completely out of sync. And this was the case for most of Game 2, man. Both Mabry and Carrington didn't shoot the ball particularly well. And these are Connecticut's biggest threats from the outside. Really, their only threats from the outside, unless Juana Bonner heats up, man. And she's been, pretty ice cold throughout these playoffs from deep. The Sun traded for Mabry just before the Olympic break, and in her short time with the team, she has helped boost their three-point shooting percentages. It was before the break sitting at 32.7%, and then post-Olympic break, they're sitting at 34.6% shooting from downtown. In Game 2, though, they could only manage 25% shooting from the outside and just 36% overall from the field. But the thing about Connecticut is, consistently, their defense is tough, and it was, again, despite that loss, man, tough and stingy, right? They held Minnesota to just 12 points in the first quarter to open up this game, and they held star Naphisha Collier to only 9 points on just 3 of 14 shooting, despite her playing all 40 minutes in that one. Connecticut did force more turnovers. They committed less fouls. They were just slightly edged on the rebounding and assist battle, but they did lose by 7 in this one. The key to me here is that the Sun are now back at home, where they only gave up 28% shooting from deep on the year, a league best 71 points per game from the opposition. The Lynx on the road, they did held opponents to a league best 41% shooting overall, but they were middle of the pack at 5th as far as three-point shooting percentages, and then second to last in terms of rebounds given up per game. That's just not the look that you want to see against a physical Sun team that really just dominates down low, right? They did give up 78 points per game on the road as well. And this is going to be the first game on the road for the Lynx in the playoffs. And it's a big one, man. Connecticut flipped home court with that victory in Game 1. They now hold the home court advantage. And I'd like them to hold on to it here in Game 3 as well. The Lynx had to have a great night shooting from deep to beat this Connecticut team that has played them tougher than anyone else this year, man. Minnesota has beaten the Aces. They beat the Liberty in 3 of the 4 games that they played each of those teams this year. They've only gone 2-3 against the Sun so far on the year. The Sun just match up well with this Minnesota team. Sun also shot the ball miserably in Game 2, like we just discussed. They had no rhythm on offense. And I think most of us expected the Lynx to get at least one game at home, right, in these playoffs, or in this series specifically. I think the Sun take this one on their home court, however, and they hold on to home court with the hopes of closing this one out in Game 4 in Uncasville. The money line, it's juiced, man. It's sitting at minus 135 or higher, depending on where you shop. It might be up by the time I upload this video. It might have gone up even higher. But, and the line jumped to 2.5 on most books as well. But we can still find the Sun right now laying 2 on FanDuel at -112. I like that right there, man. That's where I would go if I was looking at this one here as far as a spread or money line. I would look at the Sun laying those 2 points. Better odds than the money line. Then for the total, man, look, I've been off with this series so far. Off in this whole round of the playoffs, right? I think I'm 0-4 as far as the totals go for both game 1 and game 2 of each of these series. I've called for an over for both of these games so far in this series, and they've both landed well under. One of these got to go over, right? Um, I don't think it's this one though, man. If I'm back in Connecticut, I got to look towards the under here. These two have hit the under in 3 of their last 4. But look, man, considering how off I've been with the total so far in this series and this whole damn round, it's probably not one that I'm going to touch personally. Guys, let's jump over here to Outlier. And if you're not on Outlier, make sure you jump down into that description or into the pinned comment. I'm going to have a link at the top of both of those. That way you can click into that. You can get a free 7-day trial so you can try out Outlier yourself. And then after that, it's only $19.99 a month, guys. So look, if you're putting any kind of coin on these bets, man, look, you really only got to cash out on one bet, and that's enough money to cover that $19.99 a month. And I'm going to tell you right now that it's helped me become a much better and much more efficient better myself, especially when it comes to these player props, man. It's definitely helped me out tremendously there. And we're going to jump into this here so you're going to be able to see firsthand for yourself just how useful this tool is. So I'm going to be looking at Kayla McBride of the Lynx for this first prop here. I'm looking at her points and assists under 17.5. If you jump over here to the right to this Add My Pick screen, it's going to give you a little drop down, right? It's going to let you know everywhere where these props are available at the moment, and then it's going to give you the odds for each of the books that it's available on as well. That way you can find the best price. Now, this one's only available on PrizePicks and Bet365, so if you don't have PrizePicks, don't fear. You can still get this at Bet365 for -130. It is a little juiced, but we're going to dive down here in the numbers, and it's going to make a little more sense why it's a little more juice. So we're going to look over here to the right? We can look at the Connecticut Sun, their defense towards points and for assists, and how much they're allowing. If we look at them overall, they're sitting at first for points, second for assists. Against guard specifically, that position that Kayla McBride plays, they are first in both categories as far as points allowed and assists allowed. So we like that a lot, guys. Now, that's the other great thing about Outlier. Everything that's green is good, right? Everything that's red, it's bad. So the more green that we see, just definitely that's what we're looking for. That's good. So if we scroll down here, man, you can see it's kind of green across the board as far as the last 5, last 10, her last 20 games played, H to H, head to head. Then, this year, last year, we're sitting at above 50% for everything as far as her hit rate. So sitting in the green for all of that. Now, another great thing about Outlier is they have these little light bulbs here, right? They're called insights. Now, these insights are basically just like a trend. And then everything's going to be filtered to that trend. So you can really see why it's breaking down, or why they're breaking it down the way they are. It's going to filter everything down below according to that. Now, this one here says that Kayla McBride, she's failed to exceed that 17.5 points plus assist mark in 8 of her last 10 games for a 80% hit rate. And that's what we like to hear, guys, right? That's a whole lot of green down there. And those 2 that she went over was against that weak Phoenix defense, man, in the first round. So you got to like that there. We look at her in her last 3 against Connecticut. Green, green, green. So that's definitely nice, right? Now, if we look at her head-to-head against the Sun, man, she hasn't gone over this mark since September of last year, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different straight games that she has gone under this mark. 9 of the last 12 against the Sun, she has gone under this mark for a 75% hit rate. So I like this one here, guys. Like I said, it's Kayla McBride of the Lynx, points plus assists under 17.5. Next play I'm looking at is going to be Napheesa Collier of the Lynx, her points under 19.5. Now, we talked earlier about how the Sun have played Napheesa well, man. They held her to just 9 points in that last game, 19 in game 1. They seem to match up well with Collier. They could bring a lot of pressure over there. They could double her, and it's really on Minnesota to kick the ball out to those open shooters, and whether they knock them down or not has determined their success against Connecticut so far, really on the year. But we're looking at specifically for this player prop, Napheesa, her points under 19.5. Now, we jump over here. We can see that this is only available on FanDuel, but at -106, man, I like that odds, or I like those odds quite a bit for this pick here. If we look at her in her last 5, man, look, a little bit of red here. It's not what we like to see, but her last 2 games against the Sun, she has come under this mark. Like I said, 19 points in game 1, so landing right there on the hook. Only 9 points, though, in game 2, 3 of 14 shooting. Now, you got to expect a little bit of a bounce back from her, sure. But bounce back that sees her score 11 points more against this Connecticut defense, that I'm not quite sure of. If we look over here against, Connecticut for points allowed, we just discussed that in the last prop. They're sitting at first overall. We saw against guards first overall. Nafisha's sitting at that forward position. Ooh, they're still first overall. So we like that as well. Head to head, quite a bit of red over here, like I said. But we look at her just this year against the Sun. She has hit under this mark 3 of the 5 games. That first one that she, exploded for 31 points was a overtime game at the very beginning of the season. And then another 9-point game here. A 25-point game there where the Lynx did win by 2 at the end of the regular season. Now, this was a big game to clinch that 2 seed, right? In a, high pressure game, and she did show up for that one. But then under in these first 2 games so far of this series here. Now, if we look at that insight from Outlier, she has failed to exceed this mark in 6 of her last 7 games versus top 5 defenses for points allowed. You can see right down here, man, 6 out of the 7 she has gone under that mark for an 86% hit rate. And next up, we're looking at the New York Liberty taking on the Las Vegas Aces. The Aces are laying 2.5 on this one, with the over-under sitting at 166. At Liberty, they took a commanding 2-0 lead with their 4-point Game 2 victory. And they're going to look to avenge their finals loss to Vegas from a year ago with a sweep. And if they can pull it off, man, or even win in either of these next 2 in Vegas, how sweet would that be, considering the Aces closed them out on their home floor last year, right? With that 1-point victory to win the chip in New York at the Barclays Center. So New York has won 5 straight over Vegas. They have gone 3-1-1 to the number in those 5. It's worth noting that, like in the NBA, how an 0-3 hole is a death sentence that no team has ever come back from, so is the same for an 0-2 hole in the W. No team has ever come back from an 0-2 deficit in the WNBA playoffs. The defending back-to-back champs find themselves in some trouble here in their first elimination game in 3 years. Vegas definitely looked more locked in, though, for Game 2. They shot the ball 43% overall from the field, 44% from deep. They dished out 4 more dimes in New York in the process, but the key factor yet again, the Liberty won the battle on the glass, 35-29, making that all 5 games in which these two have played this year that New York has grabbed more boards than Vegas. And they aren't just barely beating them on the glass, right? They have dominated in this regard, securing 49 more boards than the Aces combined over their 5 victories this season over them, right? For an average differential of just under 10 per game. So they're dominating on that glass, man, like I've talked about in both of these videos so far for Game 1 and Game 2. That has been the difference maker between these 2 teams. New York shot just 31% from deep in Game 2, but 49% overall on their way to that victory for Game 2. This is going to be unpopular, man. I'll probably catch some hell in the comments here, but I'm back in New York on the money line with this one, and I get it. Vegas is at home. They are bringing in some momentum after losing a close one in Game 2, a game in which they outscored New York by 3 in that 4th quarter, man, and they had a chance to win that. But the Aces weren't exactly lights out at home by any means this year, man. They finished the regular season at 13-7 at home, while the Liberty were a solid 16-4 on the road. They have been pretty inconsistent on the offensive end, Las Vegas, so I just can't expect them to replicate a great night of shooting like we saw in Game 2, when the track record since returning from play from the Olympic break has showed me otherwise. Vegas has relied more on the defensive end in this stretch, but New York is so deep, so talented, and they have gained more experience as a unit after last season's disappointing end. So look, I get why while the world is on Vegas for this one. I really do. Everywhere I've looked so far, that's what I've seen, man. And I don't really go out looking for things. I don't like to be influenced by anybody else's picks before I start making my decisions. But I'm on Twitter. I'm on. I see social media. I see the media in general, and everyone is kind of talking about how Vegas is going to get Game 3 at home. And I get it, like I said, man. But I think we see an extremely motivated New York team to come in and make a statement by sweeping the back-to-back defending champs on their home court. And like I said, man, how sweet would that be for this Liberty team? They want it, man. They want it. And for me, that's been the thing, all year. I think I mentioned this either Game 1 or Game 2. I mentioned it how each game that I've watched between these two teams specifically, that's been the thing that has stuck out to me the most. Just from an eye test, the Liberty want this more. They want it more than the Aces, and it shows. And they are so damn deep. I don't know how Vegas, they have not been able to figure it out through 5 games. I don't know what changes for a 6th game. So I'm taking New York. I'm taking them on the money line, man. And then for the total, I've gone under in each game of this series so far. Both have hit over, right? Like I said, the total so far in these series have been my kryptonite, man. Comment kryptonite down below, guys. Like I said, man, I haven't been able to figure them out. I did take an under alternate line in game 1, parlayed that with the Liberty on the money line, and we did hit that. But as far as leans for the totals that are given by Vegas, I've been off through the first 2 games of these series, man, through the semis. With that said, I'm running it back here. I'm looking to the under. It's an elimination game, and if I thought Vegas was going to win this one, I'd probably be on the over, because that would mean I expect them to come in and replicate their offensive performance from game 2 and shoot the ball effectively and shoot it well. Back in New York, I feel like they get this win from tough defense, bullying the Aces on the glass, extending possessions, and playing at a slower pace like they have preferred through these playoffs so far. So I'm going to lean under. Will I play it? Man, probably not. That's just me being real, right? I can't seem to get a good read or feel for these series as far as totals are concerned, so I'll most likely stay away from that. But I am leaning under. I am tempted to play it. I don't know if I get there, though. And player prop I'm looking at here, and now it's weird to take a under for a Liberty player when I'm, predicting the Liberty to win this one, but I am looking at Jonquel Jones of the Liberty, her points under 14.5. Now, we can get this on FanDuel at -115. Now, if we look at the Aces, man, like I said, man, their success post-Olympic break has come on the defensive end. If we look at them defensively for points allowed, overall sitting at 6, but against centers, they sit at 2nd. So we love that it lights up in green right there, man. They're 2nd best in the league as far as defending centers for points allowed. And we look at this insight from Outlier. She has failed to exceed these 14.5 point mark in 8 of her last 10 on the road, only averaging 10.5 points per game over that span. So an 80% hit rate to the under. Looking at those games there, right? 8 out of her last 10 on the road. If we look at her in her last 5, she's hit this at a 4 out of 5 rate, hitting at 80% as well. And we can push it back further to her last 10 to see how consistently she has been hitting this. Still at a 70% rate, right? You got to love that there. A whole lot of green down there. Let's go back even further to her last 20. Still hitting at a 70% rate. 14 out of those last 20 games she has hit under this mark. Whole lot of green, man. You got to love that. And if we look at her head-to-head against the Aces, now she has had a little bit of success, man. You see some big numbers here, right? 34, 27, 22. Those were last year, though. We're looking at this year. So from this point on, she is 3 out of 5 hitting to the under as far as this number is concerned. And that big explosion there was in the middle of June. So quite a bit of time between now and then. If we look at her here more recently, just went over at 15 points there at the beginning of September. And then both of these games so far in this series, she has come under this mark. Now, she's been close, but she has come under that mark. So I like this one here, man. Jonquel Jones under 14.5 points. Like I said, we can get that on FanDuel right now at -115. So, guys, that is going to wrap it up here for another episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the content today. I hope you found it helpful and useful. And if you did, please do not forget to smash that like button down below and hit subscribe if you have not already. And I will see you guys on the next video. Best of luck. Let's cash out. Have a great night.